There's a moment happening in your life right now that may seem small, almost unnoticeable, but it carries more weight than you think. It's not loud, it's not obvious, and that's exactly why most people miss it. But you didn't land here by accident, because this message is connected to something you are currently going through. You are in the middle of a test, not the kind that is clearly announced, but the kind that reveals itself through your reactions, your patience, and the way you handle what's in front of you. It might look like a delay, a difficult person, an unexpected situation, or something that slightly disrupts your normal flow. And in that moment, it's easy to respond automatically, to react the way you always have. But this time is different. Because this moment is not just about what is happening, it's about how you choose to respond to it. You may not realize it yet, but the way you handle this situation is quietly shaping what comes next. This is one of those turning points that doesn't feel like a turning point until later. When you look back and realize that everything shifted because of one decision, one reaction, one moment where you either stayed aware or fell back into an old pattern. And right now, you are standing in that exact moment. What you are experiencing right now is not just another situation passing through your life. It is something designed to bring your awareness to the surface and reveal how far you have come. Tests like this do not always arrive in obvious ways. They don't come with clear labels or warnings, and that is why they are so easy to overlook. Instead, they show up in moments that feel familiar, almost predictable, like something you have already dealt with before. It could be a situation that triggers a certain emotion, a person who challenges your patience, or a moment where things don't go the way you expected. And in that instant, your mind may want to react quickly, to fall back into what feels natural, what feels automatic. But this is where the test truly exists. Not in the situation itself, but in that small space between what happens and how you choose to respond. Because if you look closely, this moment carries a pattern you have seen before. It is not entirely new. It is a reflection of something you have already experienced, something that once pulled a certain reaction out of you without hesitation. And that is exactly the point. A test does not come to introduce something unfamiliar. It comes to revisit something known and see if your response has changed. It is checking whether you are still connected to the same habits, the same emotional triggers, the same automatic reactions, or if you have reached a point where you can pause, observe, and choose differently. You may feel a sense of pressure in this moment, even if you cannot explain it clearly. That subtle tension, that feeling that something about this situation matters more than it appears, is not random. It is your awareness recognizing that this is not just about what is happening on the surface. There is a deeper layer to it, something that is quietly measuring your growth, your patience, and your ability to remain in control of yourself, rather than letting the situation control you. And this is where many people lose the opportunity, because they focus only on what is happening externally, without realizing that the real focus is on their internal response. At the same time, this test is not here to create difficulty for you. It is here to show you something about yourself that you may not have fully recognized yet. It is giving you a chance to see how you react now compared to how you would have reacted before. And even if the situation feels similar, your response does not have to be the same. That is the difference between being caught in a pattern and stepping out of it. Because the moment you become aware of your reaction, the moment you choose to pause instead of immediately responding, you are already changing the outcome. This is why this phase matters so much. It is not about passing or failing in a traditional sense. It is about awareness. It's about recognizing that you are being given a moment where your reaction carries more meaning than usual. And the way you handle it, whether you stay calm, whether you stay aware, whether you choose differently, begins to shape what happens next in ways you may not fully see yet. This test is appearing in your life right now because something within you has already shifted, even if you haven't fully recognized it yet. Growth does not always feel like a clear transformation in the moment. Most of the time it happens quietly, through experiences, through challenges, and through moments where you are forced to think differently, respond differently, or see things from a new perspective. And now, you are being placed in a situation that reflects that growth. Not to challenge you unnecessarily, but to give you an opportunity to act from who you have become instead of who you used to be. You may feel like this situation is familiar, like you have been here before in some form, and that is not a coincidence. It is intentional, because a test is not about introducing something completely new. It's about bringing back something recognizable and seeing whether your response has evolved. There was a time when this kind of situation would have pulled an immediate reaction out of you, when you may not have paused to think, when your response would have been automatic, driven by emotion, habit, or past experience. But now there is a difference, even if it is small, even if it is just a moment of hesitation before reacting. That difference matters more than you realize, because that pause, that awareness, is a sign that you are no longer fully controlled by the same patterns. You are beginning to observe instead of simply react, and that changes the entire dynamic of what is happening. This is why the test is happening now and not before. Because before, you may not have been ready to see it differently. Before, you may have responded in the only way you knew how. But now, you have enough awareness, enough experience, and enough understanding to approach this moment in a new way. And that is what is being recognized. This is not about pressure, it is about timing. It's about reaching a point where your reaction can actually create a different outcome. You may not see the full impact of this moment immediately, and that is normal. Tests like this do not always show their results right away. But what matters is what is happening internally. The shift in your response, the decision to stay aware, the choice to not fall back into what feels familiar just because it is easy. These are the moments that begin to separate your current path from your past patterns. And as you move through this, you may begin to notice something else. The situation itself may start to lose its intensity. What once felt overwhelming may begin to feel manageable. What once felt triggering may begin to feel neutral. This is not because the situation has changed, but because you have. And once that change takes place, the purpose of the test begins to complete itself. Because the test was never about the situation, it was always about you reaching a point where you could handle it differently. What matters most now is not the situation itself, but the moment you are about to step into within it, because this is where everything begins to shift. This is the point where your reaction becomes the deciding factor, where the direction of what comes next is quietly shaped by how you choose to respond. The situation may look the same as before. It may carry the same tone, the same trigger, the same pressure, but you are not the same within it anymore. And that difference is where your power exists. Because the outcome is no longer fixed, it is flexible, and it is responding to you more than you realize. If you react the way you once did, the pattern continues without resistance, leading you back into something familiar. But if you pause, if you remain aware, if you choose not to let the moment pull you into an automatic response, something changes immediately. Even if it is not visible on the surface right away, there is a space in this moment. A small but powerful space between what happens and how you respond to it. Most people move through that space too quickly, reacting without awareness, repeating what they have always done. But right now, you're being given the chance to slow that space down, to see it clearly, and to choose your response instead of letting it happen automatically. And that choice is what breaks the pattern. It is not about doing something dramatic or completely different. It is about responding with awareness instead of habit. It is about recognizing that you are not being controlled by the situation. You are influencing it through your reaction. You may feel the urge to respond quickly, to say something, to act in a way that feels familiar. And that urge is part of the test itself. Because it is showing you exactly where the old pattern still exists, where the automatic reaction is still trying to take over. But the moment you notice that urge, the moment you become aware of it, you create distance from it. And in that distance, you gain control. You are no longer reacting unconsciously, you are choosing consciously. And that shift, even if it feels small, changes everything about how this situation unfolds. As you move through this moment, you may not see an immediate change in the external situation, and that can feel confusing at first. But what is changing is the direction, the underlying path that this situation is connected to. Because once you respond differently, the pattern cannot continue in the same way. It loses its structure, its repetition, its ability to bring you back to where you were before. And even if the situation appears similar on the surface, the outcome begins to shift in ways that become clear over time. This is why your reaction is so important right now. Not because you are being judged, not because you have to be perfect, but because this is a moment where your awareness has the power to create a different result. You are not here to repeat what has already happened. You are here to move beyond it. And that movement does not come from changing everything around you. It comes from changing how you respond within it. Once this moment passes and you move through this test with awareness, something begins to change in a way that may not be obvious immediately, but it will become clear over time. The outcome of this situation will not just be about what happened externally, it will be about what shifted internally within you. Because when you respond differently, when you choose awareness over reaction, you are no longer feeding the same pattern that once controlled the outcome. And when a pattern is no longer fed, it cannot continue in the same way. This is how real change begins, not through forcing new circumstances, but through changing the way you meet the circumstances that appear in front of you. You may notice that after this, things begin to feel lighter, not necessarily because everything around you has changed instantly, but because your connection to it has changed. What once triggered you may no longer have the same effect. What once felt intense may begin to feel manageable, and situations that once repeated may begin to fade or transform into something different. This is not coincidence. This is the result of you no longer responding from the same place. And as that continues, new outcomes begin to form naturally, without you having to force them. At the same time, this shift may open the door to new opportunities, new directions, or new levels of clarity that were not available to you before. Because as long as the old pattern was active, it was guiding you toward the same types of experiences. But now, that pattern has been interrupted. And when that happens, the path ahead is no longer limited by what used to repeat. You may start to notice different types of situations entering your life, different responses from people, or even a different sense of direction within yourself. And even if these changes are small at first, they are significant because they are building something new. It is also important to understand that this does not mean you will never face challenges again. Life will continue to bring situations that require awareness, patience, and understanding. But the difference is that you are no longer approaching them from the same level of unconscious reaction. You are approaching them with experience, with awareness, and with the ability to choose your response rather than being controlled by it. And that is what creates long-term change. As you move forward from this moment, you carry something with you that you did not have before. Not just the experience of the situation, but the awareness of how you handled it. And that awareness becomes part of you. It influences how you see things, how you respond to future situations, and how you navigate challenges moving forward. You are no longer reacting the same way. And because of that, your path is no longer unfolding the same way. This is the real outcome of the test. It's not just about what happens next externally, it is about the internal shift that changes everything that follows. And even if you cannot see the full impact of it right now, you will begin to recognize it over time, as situations feel different, as patterns stop repeating. And as you move forward with a sense of control and clarity that was not there before.